In today's video, I visit a fascinating pen museum. Another wonderful example of a day-to-day object we think nothing about, but had so much work go into it. Hello, welcome to Through Lucy's Lens, weekly videos where I go somewhere interesting and hopefully you will find it interesting too. I am so excited about today's video. Stationery addicts, get ready because I am visiting a pen museum. So let's go. This is the Jewellery Quarter in Birmingham. And in the Jewellery Quarter is the Birmingham Pen Museum. Although the Jewellery Quarter was well known for the production of jewellery, hidden behind these workshop buildings were not only jewellers but badge makers, trinket producers and small pen nib factories. Birmingham was known as the city of 1,000 trades and has a rich industrial heritage, particularly in metalworking. Among its contributions to global manufacturing and in particular the Industrial Revolution, Birmingham is celebrated for its role in the development of the steel pen industry. During the 19th century, Birmingham became the world's leading producer of steel pen nibs, and at this time 75% of the pens in the world were made right here. At the height of the Jewellery Quarter's operations, there were about 100 pen factories, which employed around 8,000 skilled craft people, many of whom were women and children. This industry not only revolutionised writing practices, but also became a significant part of Birmingham's economic and social fabric, employing a diverse workforce and also influencing the city's cultural landscape. The Pen Museum really brings this industry to the forefront because it's quite often forgotten about. The museum is based in a former pen factory constructed in 1863 and was used to manufacture gold pen nibs. But today the building celebrates all of the pen producers that were built in the city. The museum is really interactive and you can touch and you can get to have a go at making the pens. It's a really lovely small museum and totally worth a visit. What I really enjoyed learning about was the significant role played by women in this industry. The booming pen industry required a large workforce, and women were pivotal in meeting the demand. The pen making process involves several intricate steps from cutting and shaping the steel to grinding and polishing the finished product. Women worked in the more delicate phases such as slitting, grinding and assembling the nibs. Their dexterity and attention to detail made them ideal for these precision tasks. Please do not take my word delicate for meaning that this was easy work. Working conditions in the factories were far from ideal. The environment was harsh, with long hours and low pay being the norm. One woman would make 18,000 pens a day, under strict rules such as no talking, no singing, and no wasting the metal. It also isn't lost on me how many of the women and children, and the men too, who were working in this industry would have no use for a pen, as illiteracy was high in the working classes, and many of the people that worked in this industry up until the late Victorian era would not have any use whatsoever for a pen. I got to have a go on some of the machines, and I can tell you it is hard. It's hard and repetitive, and I could see how working on a machine like this all day would give you things like arthritis, tendinitis, carpal tunnel, not to mention the general day-to-day illness from poor living conditions and working in really close proximity to your colleagues. Despite the challenges, the work offered women a rare opportunity for financial independence at a time where their employment options were often very limited. The wages earned by the female pen makers were of course lower than the men. However, It gave these women independence. It allowed them to contribute to their household's income and in some cases provided a sense of personal achievement. Really interestingly, the presence of women in the pen making industry also influenced social dynamics in Birmingham. As the women gained employment, they began to participate more in social and community affairs, and this challenged traditional gender roles and expectations in the Victorian period. By the early 20th century, and particularly with the introduction of the biro pen in 1938, there became less and less need for steel pen nibs, even at school, I went to school in the 1980s, we still had to use a cartridge pen. But unfortunately, by then, I can't imagine that these steel nibs were being made in Birmingham. Today, there are 2 factories in England left making steel pen nibs. So next time you're using a cartridge pen, have a little look on your nib and see where it was made. The museum holds thousands and thousands of tiny exhibits, from pen nibs to pen holders, blotting blocks. You name it, it was a feast. If you love stationery, you need to come and see all these things. I was in heaven because I have always been pen mad. I remember the joy of being allowed to use ink for the first time at school, and that has never left me because since then I've practiced calligraphy and copper plate, and I just love pens. So if you love pens, this is the place for you. I loved how the museum is also a celebration of the people who have worked in this industry, with hundreds of photographs of people working in the pen factories right up until the 20th century. I couldn't film all of the photographs because they don't belong to me. But if you do go to the museum, make sure you have a look at this wall. It's really heartwarming and lovely. There's also a part of the museum that celebrates cartography, so you can go and have a go on a typewriter. Oh, I was so excited. When I was a kid, I asked for a typewriter for Christmas over and over again. Mom, I know you're watching, and eventually I did get one. And I just had the best time playing on these typewriters. I know for some people they're probably a drag because you had to work on them for years and years, but I just love them. One of the highlights of this museum is being able to make your own pen nib. It's great going to a museum and seeing things and learning about things, but nothing beats having a go to me. And I was really impressed that we got to use this quite scary looking equipment. So I had a go at cutting my own nib, and you can take it home with you. So thank you to the museum for that opportunity, because I think there is no better type of learning than giving it a go. And it gave you a good sense of it was a ruddy hard job.
Would you like to do one more time?
One more, not very strong.
Yeah. Great.
Wow, that's hard work if you were doing that all day. Like, when I walked into this room, it got me. It's so quiet here. And you can just walk around and really experience all the parts of the pen making process, which again, if you've watched my video on needles, it's the same. Who would have thought that all these processes went in to producing something that we take for granted? Not many of us use a pen and ink anymore. I still do because I enjoy calligraphy. But back when, before 1938, when the biro was invented, and that's all there was. All these thousands of people working day and night in harsh conditions to produce something that we don't even think about. And when you come into a room like this, it just really brings it home. Did you enjoy the Pen Museum? I did. It was lovely. Very small, low-key, relaxed, very quiet. I was a bit at some points because it was so quiet. However, If you are in this area, I am here with a Brucey bonus, or should we say a Lucy bonus, because you know I never leave you on just one thing. I'm like, let's just do something else. In this area is one of the most fascinating parts of Birmingham, in my opinion, of course. So if you're here, you must come and see the catacombs. Yes, catacombs at Brookfield Cemetery, just down the road. It's also known as Warstone Lane Cemetery, and it's one of the oldest cemeteries in Birmingham. Lots of videos on YouTube about ghosts and stuff, but I don't subscribe to that stuff. You know, you believe what you believe. I just think it is a beautiful historical place where so many citizens of this city are laid to rest, and there's catacombs, so let's go and take a look at them. Brookfield Cemetery, also known as Warstone Lane Cemetery, was established in 1848 by a private company to address the urgent need for more burial space in the city. This was due to the rapid industrial growth and also soaring death rates due to disease and poor living conditions industrialisation brought along with it. Built in a tiered semicircle, the magnificent catacombs feel almost like a Roman amphitheatre to me. The Victorians, I always think, sure knew how to do death. The catacombs are now closed up and you can no longer go and step inside to pay your respects as you once would have been able to. There's a bit of a ghastly reason for that. They were starting to smell. The gases were escaping and it wasn't creating a very pleasant environment, so they've been sealed up now, and excavation work was done for many years to make sure that they were safe and that this remains, because it's such an incredible part of the city and many people haven't got a clue that it's here, or if they have, they've never been. Because of the grand style of the tombs, you'd be forgiven for thinking that this was perhaps a resting place for the regal or richer people in Birmingham. The truth is actually sadder. Behind the tunnel doors are the remains of the Birmingham poor, who had fallen victim to the 19th century overcrowding and squalid conditions faced by the working classes. Alongside the poorer occupants of the catacombs is John Baskerville, a well-known English typographer and printer, and that connects really nicely to the Pen Museum. And yes, he is the namesake for the font we still use today. Baskerville died in 1775, long before the cemetery was built. His body was originally interred in a small mausoleum on the grounds of his home, but after a canal was built through the area, Baskerville was then moved to the crypt of a nearby church. When the church was demolished in 1897, the contents of its crypt, which included Baskerville's remains, was moved to the catacombs at Warstone Lane. Hopefully, this poor guy is now getting some rest. The catacombs, while they were a great idea to bury as many as possible quickly, led to some really unpleasant smells. That meant that these catacombs inspired the Birmingham Cemeteries Act of 1846. The Act decreed that from now on, all coffins to be placed inside must be sealed with pitch or lead. At one point, these catacombs were a public health problem. The catacombs are now completely sealed, but keep your eyes peeled for special tours where you can go inside the tunnels. They open occasionally thanks to volunteers and the Birmingham Heritage Society. You can explore the maze inside. The tour is carefully planned so no human remains or coffins are disturbed or seen during the tour. So if you were doing any family history and you come... Isn't it strange how you come to do one thing? So I came to look at the Pen Museum, and then you go away doing something else that you've enjoyed equally, if not a little bit more. This has been a real little explore for me, and even though I am a lifelong citizen of Birmingham, this is somewhere that I've always wanted to come and have never been, and here I am. Thank you so much for watching. As always, I appreciate every single one of you. I hope you've enjoyed today's video and it's maybe given you some inspiration of places to visit in the UK, or if you're just a bit nosy like me, you just like to come along for the explore. Until next week, bye bye.